Welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Today I'm going to finally get to these lures. They've been hanging in my shop for like 3 months. I've got them clear coated so they're nicely shiny, and that's what they need to be to get silver plated and have that really shiny and reflective chrome finish. So all I've done is wash them. I'm going to let them dry a little while. They're going to get rinsed again, but the setup is a little bit of a hassle. So let's sort of fast forward through it. So right now I'm just putting a little bit of distilled water in these containers so I can clean the gun and calibrate it again, because it's usually a little off every time I go to use it, and I need to be certain that it's spraying the same amount from each of the bottles. I gotta say, this thing's looking a little rough. The chemicals are pretty caustic and they tend to sort of rust everything it comes in contact with. So you can get the same amount coming out of both. So you can get the same amount coming out of both of these jars. So now I need to set the pressure as low as I can possibly set it and still get volume coming out of this thing. So having about 10 psi while I have it pressed seems to work best. So on top of having air set up for my gun to spray the silver, 2-part silver, I've also got a blow gun here stretched from the other side of the shop, and this is set about 15 psi just to dry these guys off as they come out of the silver, because you got to get the water off of them. You can't let them bead and dry because they get little watermarks on them. And I've got my chemicals mixed. This is the first time I'm actually using this brand of chemicals. I have been using stuff that I've been buying out of Hong Kong, but this is actually locally purchased, or at least in the US. I got the reactant and the activator, and then I have this stuff, which is not olives. This is actually a solution that preps the surface so that this stuff will adhere to it. Most instructions tell you to take your piece of work or whatever it is, your silver plate, and spritz it with the sensitizer, which is what this stuff is. But I choose to dip. It's just easier, it's less messy, I don't have to worry about breathing it. And I dip it, and then I rinse it off with my distilled water spritzer, and I keep that full. All I got to do now is get these guys spritzed off and get 1 or 2 in the sensitizer, and then we'll get cranking. since this is new stuff to me, I'm doing some experimenting to try to figure out how to get the best finish. But look at that. Isn't that something? I mean, that is as chrome as you're gonna get with this kind of stuff. And the real amazing part of it for me is that you can touch this stuff. The stuff I was using from Hong Kong or Thailand, I don't remember where it came from. It was just a micron or two thick, and if you just barely touched it, you'd take it off. So you had to be real careful how you covered it, how you protected it, and how quickly you got a clear coat on it, and what kind of clear coat you used. So I'm hoping this is going to be more sort of forgiving, and it's certainly given me a really nice finish. I'm going to do a couple more experiments with some of the ones that aren't perfect, and then I'll get to these. So the methods work. On occasion you get a blemish or two. It's a matter of, you know, your aesthetic and whether you can live with it. There's a few that I'm going to redo, and it's just a matter of cleaning it off again and then redoing it. So just to show you how I actually do it and what the trick really is, let's go ahead and do this one. This is, I think, my last one, so I'll show you. I'm pulling it off with a lint-free rag, and I've already got it kind of damp with some alcohol, and this is just isopropyl, 91% alcohol. And now you're not going to find this anywhere on any of the tutorials. This I discovered myself. It helps a lot with reducing the number of flaws and little blemishes. So you wipe it down really good. And now I'm going to grab it with my little forceps or whatever these things are called. And now comes a weird thing. I'm going to use a torch. This is just like a regular butane torch. I'm going to ignite it. There's a blue flame in there. I'm not sure it's showing, but I want to pass that blue flame all over everything relatively quickly so I don't burn my surface, but I want to make sure I hit everything. And now I'm going to dip it in my sensitizer. Now here's one I just did. Let's go ahead and hit it with some silver. That's just water. And the idea is to be very minimal on this. Let the silver do the job. What I do is I let it run to the weak spots. So if I got a little white spot on the nose, I'll let it kind of run to there, and it usually takes care of it. Alright, that should do it. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop it from working by rinsing off the excess two parts. And now you just hit it with a little air to dry it. And you end up with this beautiful silver plate, and it's actually really durable. You can touch it. Just don't want to let water droplets dry on it, because it'll give you a little water stain. Okay, let's do this one. Alright, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt taking that respirator on and off, but definitely got to wear a respirator. Alright, so there's another one. Pretty nice. Gotta say, I really love this finish. It's hard to photograph this reflective finish because the camera, not sure it really captures how well. Oh, there's a nice rattle, huh? If you can see the whole room reflected in it. Okay, so I've got this mess cleaned up a little bit, and I'm going to take the last lure that I silver plated, I'm going to put it on one of my lure bows just so I can hang on to it while I go for the next step, which is a clear cut. This step can ruin or make your lure. I'm going to use the polyacrylic, which I have pre-mixed here. It's just cut 15% by volume with water. Now I'm just going to use my airbrush. I've got about 30 psi on it, and I'm just going to give it 2 or 3 thin coats. And I'm going to let that set up for probably about 5 or 10 minutes between coats. Hopefully it'll stay just that shiny. I think it will. Alright, so it seems to have done the job. Can do the finger wave trick here. So as we move from these kinds of finishes to tinted finishes like this gold one right here, and all kinds of tinting, you can get really creative and you can get some really interesting effects, but that's for another video. So thank you for watching. If you've got questions on the process, certainly ask. I know it's a little complex, but it really isn't that bad. And as far as cost, you know, now using the material from Angel Gilding, it seems to be a little more cost effective. A little bit goes a long way. I did all this, something around 3 to 4 ounces of each of the 2 parts. So feel free to ask those questions, leave those comments. I'll go ahead and put a link to where I bought the material in the description. Hopefully you got something out of this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll catch you on the next video.